approval of the record, Mr. President.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor, any opposed, so vote. What are we gonna do? We're gonna go to the...
You want to go to the mayor first? Yeah.
So what are we gonna do?
I think he wants to introduce the library director.
Anyone opposed of the mayor's we're gonna skip to
7D.
7D. The mayor is gonna announce a couple of appointments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. Very pleased here tonight to make the announcement that the Peabody Institute Library Board of Trustees have selected Melissa Robinson to fill the position of Director of Peabody Institute Library. I want to commend the Library Board for their hard work. Rick Shruhan was the chairman of the committee. A number of outstanding people served on that committee, and I wanted to mention their names. Jerry Guillot, who I wanted to make special note, who just done a fabulous job filling in as the interim director since Martha's retirement. Martha Kavanaugh, Don McAllister, Gina Hearn, Linda Quigley, and Beth O'Donnell are our director. I also wanted to mention Stephanie Najjar is here from the Peabody Institute Library Board. Just a fantastic group of people who work extremely hard for our city, and they did an outstanding job running a very difficult process. There were a number of outstanding candidates that applied for the position. There were a number of interviews. Really did an excellent job in vetting the candidates, and I think we've hired an outstanding person to be our next director, and I was thrilled with the decision to hire Melissa as our director. Many of you know Melissa. She's been with the city now about 15 years. She's been recently acting as the interim assistant director. Prior to that, she was the manager at the West Peabody branch for a number of years. She has a bachelor's degree from Merrimack College, and she has a master's degree in library science from Southern Connecticut State University. Just a wonderful person. I think she's going to continue the great work at our library that Martha Holden has performed for us for a number of years. And on a personal level, just a wonderful human being that I think will add so much to our city. So it is a Board of Trustees appointment. They voted on it. She has actually already started. I wanted to bring her forward today to introduce her and to present her to the City Council as our next director. Mr. Chairman, I know Melissa would be happy to say a few words. Good.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a very nice introduction. It's a privilege to be here, and it's been a privilege to serve the Peabody community through the library for the past 15 years. I can't describe how excited I am to get started working with the city and the council and the mayor and our wonderful board of library trustees and our extremely forward-thinking staff and the great community partners that the library has put together. We're excited for the future of the library and looking forward to working as hard as possible to continue to serve the residents and all of the community members here through the library. So thank you for your support, and I'll see you to talk about the budget next week.
Thank you. Ms. Manning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really, really, really pleased and excited about this appointment. I've known Melissa for probably 13 years. I think she was in undergraduate at the time. She was so committed to her community. She's smart. She cares about people. You failed to mention, Mayor, she went and got a graduate certificate in women in politics. And then quickly she decided she was going to instead get a graduate degree in library science. So she's just sharp, and she's a great addition to the team, and I'm really happy for you. I'm so happy for you. I know your parents are here. They must be so proud. And this is just great, Melissa. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. We're going to motion to receive 7D.
So moved.
Thank you, Council Manning. Mr. Mayor, did you want to?
Thank you. I also wanted to bring forward a proposal for the city, and actually it was mislabeled. I learned later that the appointment that I'm proposing today is actually a council appointment for the Community Development Authority. The five-member board, as you know, one member is the Director of Community Development, but there are two mayor appointments that right now are Barry Feinstein and who's my other appointment? William Woods. There are two city council appointments. One is Gary Bua, and then we have the vacancy right now. I would propose Brian Vinagro. I know many of you know Brian from his work on the Chamber of Commerce, an outstanding financial background. He's been a part of a number of city activities for several years. Somebody that I think would be an excellent asset for the board to bring his expertise. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science from Salem State and got a certificate in financial planning from Boston University. Has an impressive financial background. Most recently, he's been working at Peabody Wealth Advisors as a financial planner. And as I mentioned, he's been involved in the board of directors now for several years with this Peabody Area Chamber of Commerce. Been very active. He's at every event and is really committed to the city of Peabody. He's involved in coaching as well as a number of city organizations. Somebody who I think would be an excellent representative on a board that has to make some important decisions, and I think you'd be an excellent recommendation, and I would propose that he be moved forward as a candidate. But it is a council vote, and let Mr. McGinn speak to that.
If I may, point of order, we haven't voted on Melissa's. We need to vote on Melissa's, correct? No? My apologies. Thank you.
Councilman McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Yeah, I'm prepared. I think Mr. Vinagro has exceptional qualifications to serve on the Community Development Authority, and I'd be pleased to make a motion to approve the City Council appointment of Brian V. Vinagro, CFP, 44 Murdoch Drive, Peabody, Mass. 01960, to the position of Community Development Authority for a term to expire 12/31/2017. Said appointment is in accordance with Chapter 502 of the Acts of 1977. So moved.
Okay, on the motion, Council Sinowitz.
Thank you, I'm not going to say Mr. President. I'm not going to say Mr. Acting President. But and through you to Brian, I'm glad that you're coming on board, or I'm assuming that we're going to vote you onto the board. As like the mayor said, it's a very important board in terms of the decisions that are being made. And the decisions that are being made is to help businesses, help the city grow. And sometimes they're hard decisions and we need people to vet them and make sure, you know, it's city money. And I know there's been a few things in the past that's gone on that were questionable, and we want somebody in there with the background that can look at things and say this is good, this is bad, and look at a business plan and make the proper decisions. So you got my support, and I like the background. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. On the motion, roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Sinowitz.
Yes.
Garabedian.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0, 1 absent. Mike, can I have that back?
I'd like to thank everybody for the confidence, and I look forward to serving the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Quick announcement. This meeting is being televised live on cable channel 9 and being taped by PB Access TV and also being recorded by our City Council stenographer. Thank you.
So we need to approve the record.
Okay, motion to approve the record. Council. Okay, 4A. Will the clerk please read the notice?
Oh, 4A is a continued hearing, but I don't know if the applicant's here. I don't see him. No. Is Mr. Santos here?
No.
Counselor, is it your ward?
Counselor, I called him. I left the message on with his voicemail. He never called me back. I called the property owner. He never called back.
Okay.
Should we withdraw this without prejudice, let them give them an opportunity to come back? I mean, I can't see putting it off another.
I think we have to at least open the hearing because we're close to the 65 days before we give them constructive approval. So I think if you want to recess it, we can open it and then recess it and give them one more chance if you want to do that.
Okay.
Councilman Sulis.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recess till our next meeting, which is
June 22nd.
June 22nd. Yep.
Okay, would the clerk please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody, acting as a special permit granting authority, will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, June 8th, 2017, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franklin Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass. On the application from Nascimento Santos, 36 Oak Street, Peabody, Mass. For a special permit to operate a barbershop at 36 Tremont Street, Peabody, Mass. Is filed in accordance with sections 1.5, 6.1, and 15.7 of the Peabody zoning ordinance. Peabody City Council, Councilor Joel D. Sasslaw, City Council President.
On a motion to recess, roll call.
Okay. Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Mitsoulas.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Sinowitz. Garabedian.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Okay, 4B, zoning map amendment. Would the clerk please read the notice?
Mr. President, I move to receive a late communication from Charles Holden asking to withdraw his application under item 4B.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. Councilor Wall.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just if you can include in that, we're withdrawing without prejudice.
You want me to say that?
Withdraw without prejudice the application for 91 Linfield Street zoning. Move to withdraw without prejudice the application from Charles Holden to change the zoning at 91 Linfield Street.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? To vote. 4C, zoning ordinance amendment. I'll try it again. Would the clerk please read the notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Thursday evening, June 8th, 2017, at 7:30 p.m. in the Franklin Wigan Auditorium, City Hall, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 40A, Section 5 of the Massachusetts General Laws, to consider amending the zoning ordinance of the City of Peabody as follows. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Peabody as follows. Section 1, that the zoning ordinance of the City of Peabody entitled City of Peabody Zoning Ordinance adopted April 28th, 2011 and amended through December 8th, 2016 is hereby further amended as follows by adding under Section 6 Special Regulations a new Section 6.14 entitled Temporary Moratorium on the Sale and Distribution of Recreational Marijuana. There shall be a temporary moratorium through December 31st, 2018 on the usage of land or structures for a recreational marijuana establishment and marijuana retailer, which use shall include without limitation the operation of any marijuana establishment as defined in General Laws, Chapter 94G, Section 1, including without limitation a marijuana cultivator, marijuana testing facility, marijuana product manufacturer, marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related business. This prohibition shall not apply to the sale, distribution, or cultivation of marijuana for medical purposes licensed under Chapter 369 of the Acts of 2012. Section 2, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect as provided by law. Peabody City Council, Councilor Joel D. Sasslaw, City Council President. It's a public hearing, so
Okay.
somebody has to present it.
So I just do the, Council Sinowitz.
This is a public hearing, and our city solicitor isn't here. The assistant city solicitor isn't here, the assistant to the assistant. So this is a lot of legal uncertainties here, and I don't even know how we can act on this without having guidance from our city solicitor. I could ask 20 questions right now. There's no one here to answer anything. Are we just supposed to vote on it?
Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Through to Council Sinowitz, I just remind you that we did go through this in session before it was sent to the planning board. So, and there were questions asked at the time. So, my suggestion would be to ask if, follow normal protocol. I asked if there's anybody here to support or oppose the proposed zoning amendment and proceed from there.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor of the petitioner? Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor? Is there anybody that would speak in opposition? You want to say your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, the name is Russell Donovan, 12 Quail Road. What are we voting on tonight? Because it says a temporary moratorium, but you want to vote on something that's temporary, which might be permanent. So, and I know maybe it was the last city council, we were talking about a zoning change on Route 1 for a marijuana facility. Shouldn't those two things be combined? I'm at a loss at what you're asking for tonight. I hope the city council will explain it for us, for the public, for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak in opposition? Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Well, okay, we'll open up to the council. Councilor Gravel.
Yeah, just to add some clarification, this is for recreational use. We had a long discussion on the idea of the mayor was not in support, nor was the council in support of allowing the recreational use of marijuana in the city. But we were also advised that, based on the passage of the state law, that and we were advised by, at that time, the city solicitor who was in. He gave a pretty detailed explanation of what our courses of action could be. And we were kind of following a path that said we wanted to put a moratorium on at least until I believe it was December of 2018, which would follow the next state election, even though we were going to put a referendum on the city election come this November, so that in the event that the city elections referendum doesn't stand the test of being valid against the state, we would then have a second attempt at it at the state election. So it was for that reason that this was put on the agenda, and we were advised that the only way we could do a moratorium was to go through a zoning amendment of this nature, much like the moratorium we put on billboards. So that was the purpose. Again, I think it was well vetted at the time, and I know there might be some questions here tonight. I'm certainly no authority on recreational marijuana, but it's I think it's important, if we want to have the moratorium, we've already sent this through the process. This is kind of its last step in the journey.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else? Counselor Sinowitz?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I hear what you're saying, Councilor Gravel, but what my concern is are we getting the correct legal advice? You know, we were told 2 years ago to ban it. So we jumped in early and we banned it, not knowing anything. See, the December 18th of next year for recreation makes sense, because that will be after the state ballot question. So that's all going to get sorted out. But we jumped in 2 years early and said, no, we don't want it. Now we want it. And now we were told our ban is illegal. So is this legal? Is this going to withstand a challenge? You know, and as far as you know, recreational, we really need to have a plan. Banning it just isn't the whole deal. I think it really should be proactive and zone it, put it where you want it. So what's going to happen is whether that passes or not on the ballot, if they put it on in 2017, if it passes, marijuana companies are all set. Great, we're in. If it fails, they're going to sue us and say it belongs on the 2018 ballot. That's what they'll do. So if we're going to ban it, zone it, create where we want to put it, because also once they approve, if it's approved, they're going to start selling recreational, the medical facilities. That's a whole nother ballgame, which we don't even know what the rules are on that. That's why I was just hoping that the city attorney was here before I vote on it. And, you know, to be honest with you, you know, we have a say, but it's not really us that's going to have the say. It's the residents of Peabody that are going to make this decision. We can be against it all we want. Many communities voted it in, and they're going to have another crack at it. So we'll see what the residents of this city want. You know, we can all say we don't want it, whether you're for it or against it, but it's not us that's going to make the final decision. It's the residents of this city, and I just don't want to be put in a position where we're getting sued. I'd like a clear path of where we're going, and I get kind of nervous because, you know, I felt the advice wasn't smart the first time, and you know, when I get this now, and I wish he was here so I could, you know, I don't want him chasing fly balls, but I would hope that he would have been here to ask a few questions and assure us that this means something. So it's just comments. I don't like to go into this thing, a feel-good motion. Yeah, we're going to ban it. You know, that doesn't really mean anything to me. We'll see what happens in the fall.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. I tend to concur with Councilor Gravel. We did get a legal opinion on this. We have a communication that was from the city solicitor on March 6, 2017 that was pretty detailed in terms of the approach. And this was vetted with the assistance of the city solicitor at a meeting of the Legal Affairs Committee on April 20th. So personally, I'm comfortable moving forward on this based on the guidance that we received. And I think in fact, the extension to the December date was based on information that Councilor Manning Martin had brought to the attention of the council by means of information she obtained from the MMA. Is that correct, Councilor? She's nodding in agreement. So I don't know if I didn't hear any others to come up. This wouldn't preclude further council debate, but I'd move to close the public hearing.
Councilor, did you want?
Can I just make a point of order, Council? Technically, we cannot vote on this tonight because we don't have a planning board recommendation. Planning board was scheduled to hold a hearing last Thursday. They didn't list it on the agenda, so they're holding their hearing next Thursday. So we're in a position where we can't act on it tonight anyways.
So the Clerk, we should recess this hearing to another date. I mean, we can set the date, Councilman McGinn?
I believe we can close the hearing. I think we can't vote on it. Correct?
If you close the hearing, you can still vote on it, but
No, we can close the hearing. We can receive the planning board recommendation at a later date and vote on it at that later date, but we don't need to recess the hearing.
it's up to you, however you want to do it.
Well,
Council
through you to
Sinowitz.
Council again, why would we want to, close the hearing? Because if this plan, unless it's a fait accompli that they're just voting yes, if they come back with a different point of view, don't we want to be able to discuss it? And then the meeting's closed.
The meeting's closed to the public at that point, but
No, it's not done. We can still debate this or discuss this on the floor of the council. I just want to make sure that's
correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's 100% my expectation. Unless other councilors... No, I believe that's accurate.
So a motion to close the public hearing?
The motion's on the floor.
On the motion, Council Sinowitz?
Yeah, I just have a comment, because there's such a gray area here on this medical selling recreational. And I just don't understand, how this is going to work. If we ban recreational in general, does that mean that if a medical marijuana clinic opens, that if they're allowed to sell recreational, they can't sell it? They cannot. Because I really believe what's going to happen is recreational is going to become legal. Whether it's legal in Peabody or not, we don't know that yet, but it'll be legal all around us. And what's going to happen is the medical people are going to want to sell recreational. Because why would you want to go to a medical marijuana facility, register as a marijuana user, put your name in a database, get a card, and be put there for a permanent record on your medical record, when you can just walk into any facility and buy it off the street, like you're buying a six-pack of beer? So I think once this all gets rolling, the medical marijuana facilities and the recreational are going to be in conflict, and they're going to want their share of the pie. So I think, it's just my point is, we've got to know what we're doing, and we don't even know what the rules of the game are. So, that's just that's my thoughts on it. I just think it's, we should have a clear path, like I said, where we're going, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilor Walsh.
I think I'll reserve my comments for right now.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Close the hearing. Roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes?
Turco.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Matsoulis.
Yes.
Charis.
Yes.
Sinowitz. Garabedian.
Yes.
Motion to close the hearing carries 10-0.
Mr. Chairman, Acting President?
Council McGinn.
Yeah, I would move that we defer any further action on this until said time as we receive a recommendation from the planning board on this matter. So moved.
On the motion, roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Matsoulis. Charis.
Yes.
Sinowitz. Garabedian.
Yes.
Motion carries 10-0.
Let's try another roll call. Okay, reports of committee, Industrial and Community Development Committee. Councilor Sinowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. There were two items on the agenda. One was a zoning ordinance change about construction hours of operation. And there was a motion made, I'm not going to go through the whole, but there was a motion made to send to the planning board to review those construction hours operation, and it was a unanimous vote of the subcommittee, and so moved.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Let's vote. Mr. Counselor?
Yeah, and there was one other motion made about the parking and the PDAT, and I'm going to defer to Councilor McGinn on that one, because that's his ward, and he seems to know that issue inside and out.
Councilor McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chairman, and thank you, Councilor Sinowitz. The motion made was to have the police department work with community development and the city solicitor on amending the ordinance to reflect the proposed changes and bring back those recommended changes to the city council for consideration based on the following: increased parking meter rate from 25 cents per hour to $1 per hour, increased parking meter time limit from 1 hour to 2 hours on street and 2 hours to 4 hours off street at the Nichols Street, Foster Street, Central Street, and Mill Street lots, install pay and display parking stations at Railroad Ave and meters at 4 spaces in front of City Hall along Lowell Street. And the fourth item is to request a recommendation for the modernization of existing meter heads. So moved.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor, any opposed? To vote? Councilor Sinowitz, that's it? Okay. Finance Committee, Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Dean of the Council. President Garabedian. This evening there was a meeting held of the Finance Committee. In attendance, representing the committee were myself as chair, Councilor Gould, Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor McGinn, and Councilor Turco. We also had all other city councilors here, excluding Councilor Sasslaw. There were 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first was a follow-up on a motion made by Councilor Gould to have the assessor's office in the person of Susan Antonellis come in and educate us on the way that assessments are done. We got quite an education, lasted for a little over an hour, on the various ways that the assessors look at different types of property, including both commercial and residential. There were no motions taken at that time. It was a report of progress, and again, it was informational. The second item on the agenda this evening was a follow-up on a motion made by Councilor Walsh to get us a better understanding of our liability exposure and our insurance costs and coverages. We had a presentation made by a representative from the insurance company, and actually I think he's our broker. And we, again, were informed about the various levels of coverage that the city has to protect its properties, as well as to insure against liabilities associated with any kind of risk that we take, including personal and bodily injury and all of that. So, again, there were no motions taken at the time. It was just more for informational purposes to ensure that we had the proper levels of coverage, and it appears that we do. On that, the meeting was adjourned, and I have no further report.
Thank you, Councilor Gravel. Just receive that as a report of progress. Thanks, Councilor Gravel. Motions, orders, and resolutions. Councilor Manning.
No motions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Gravel.
Thank you, Council President. The first thing I'd like to make a motion on is under suspension of the rules, and hopefully my screen's not jumping, that we received this evening the operating budget for fiscal year 2018, item 7A, and refer it to the Subcommittee of Finance. So moved.
On the motion, Councilor Sinowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Councilor Gravel. There was no vocational school budget in there.
And we'd like the vocational school budget too, please.
Tim, could you request that? Thank you.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gravel.
Next, under suspension of rules, I'd like to receive item 7B and refer it to the Subcommittee on Finance.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Next, I'd like to receive on the suspension of Rule 7C for an ordinance amendment for sewer and water rates and refer it to the Committee on Finance.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Gravel.
Also on the suspension of the rules, I'd like to receive item 7F on various transfers and refer those to Finance.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And last, I have one motion that I'd like to make and maybe just give a quick explanation. It was brought to my attention by a very observant resident that we have an upcropping of food trucks and trailers that have shown up, some in the Centennial Park area. And under further investigation, it was first one, then two, then three, although one has not shown up since a few days ago. But they seem to be appearing with more frequency because food trucks are in. The question was raised to me, and as it pertains to that, is there no ordinance that protects the city against an onslaught of food trucks? The answer is there is no ordinance that protects the city against an onslaught of food trucks or food wagons or whatever you want to call them. They fall under a state legislation as a hawker's license, and all they have to pass is our own health inspection to be able to operate within the boundaries of the city. Some may say that's not a problem, but for instance, and there's not a lot we can do about it at this point in time, in 2 weeks we'll be witnessing the Senior Open, and any food truck that passes inspection will be eligible to sell their product along the public way. And there's not a lot that we can do about it. This even gets more troubling when you think of the fact that it's not just in a office park. Right now, based on what I've seen and researched, if they wanted to park a food truck down in front of Brothers, as long as they pay the parking meter fine, the parking meters, they could do that right out here at City Hall or in a neighborhood near you. Many cities have had to deal with this. I was fortunate enough to get some information from Sharon on the city of Boston, which I've been researching. There are ways to restrict the areas, but it has to be done by ordinance. So I would like to make a motion in conjunction with my fellow Ward 1 resident councilor and John Turco to send to the Industrial Community Development Committee this item to create an ordinance to help us legislate food trucks and other types of vehicles. So moved.
On the motion, Councilor Charis.
Thank you, Councilor. When I first got on the board, I checked in on this and I found out exactly what you were saying. They only have to get a permit through the state and follow the Board of Health rules and inspections. The other thing that I found out is that it's the flower vendors and the gift vendors that have the same procedure. They can set up a flower stand right in front of a florist in the city here who employs members of the city, pay taxes and all those things, and can just skirt right behind, right past the ordinance. So if you would, I'm glad you said you like to look into other vendors operating in that fashion. So I would really like to see that because it's going to create a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, we would consider maybe expanding the motion to say any group that has a state hawker's license, which would include all of those. And yes, I would agree. And if you could, Tim, realizing that Centennial Park is kind of divided between Ward 1 and Ward 4, I'd like to have Ed on the motion as well.
Thank you. Councilor Manning.
Thank you. And would this include ice cream trucks too?
There's a special provision for ice cream trucks, and we'll talk about that. I think it would be, anything is up for discussion, but there's a special provision for ice cream trucks, believe it or not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Mr. Gravel? Done? Councilor Turco?
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to receive item 8B.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Mr. President, move to receive item 8D in reference to the withdrawn public hearing.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Mr. President, I have a motion regarding the Centennial Office Park also, because it's come up quite a bit where people ask about vacancies and which businesses are current, and actually more recently regarding scholarships, several people asked me if I had contact information. So the motion would be to ask Community Development to come up with a business listing for each active business in the Centennial Office Park, as well as vacancies, and where those vacancies are. And I'd like it to be specific as to property management, the property manager on site, and possibly even the human resources director, so that we as a council can have that information at hand if we ever need it. Thank you.
Thank you. On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And lastly, Mr. President, today marks the 91st day that the administrative consent order was issued for the Alpine building, and visibly, and I say visibly because other things may have occurred, but visibly all I see is that some of the piles were covered by poly and labeled. As far as any cleanup on the property, nothing has occurred at all, and I sent an email to our state legislature and Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Mass DEP regarding the fact that nothing has changed on that site at all. And I have to say that it's the number one question asked of me when I talk to people is, what's the status of that property? And I'm ashamed to say that nothing's happened. So again, it's the 90th day. I did get an email at 5 p.m. today, coincidentally, and it said that Comtank has requested to be on the property tomorrow to remove one tank. So I wonder actually if we're letting them operate. I mean, is this, to remove one tank out of 100 and somewhat tanks, is it a slap in the face, or is it that they've sold one of these tanks and we've gone 90 days and allowed nothing to happen, and they just conduct business? So the point in the moral here is that at some point we as a board are going to have to do something here, because I was confident in DEP, but 91 days later I've seen no activity at all, and I just, at some point this is going to have, the residents are going to have to help out, and we're going to have to petition whether it be the governor's office or Mass DEP to help us address this building and contamination. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. I'd like to make a co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to fill in an eroded area in front of 18 Colonial Road. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also a co-motion with Councilor Mitsoulas to fill in a sinkhole at the corner of Margin Street and Roycroft Road. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
I'd like to make a co-motion with Councilor Sharis to have I think this might be a repeat, Tim, to have a stop sign painted on the street at the intersection of Perkins and Lowell. Apparently it's becoming quite a hazard at that intersection. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I don't know enough about this, but I'm going to defer to Councilor Turco with some help. I should have asked you about this, John. Co-motion with Councilor Turco to have a sign replaced in front of 41 Fairview Ave there used to be a sign that said a maximum of 7.5 horsepower boats are allowed in Browns Pond, and I think that is still the maximum that we're looking for, and please have the sign replaced. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gould. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. On suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8E and refer that to the recessed public hearing on that matter. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. On suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8G and refer that to the recessed public hearing on that matter. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8K and refer that to the recessed public hearing on that matter. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8F and approve all papers being in order. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8H. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Acting President. Under suspension of the rules, move to receive item 8L and set up a public hearing. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. On suspension of the rules, move to receive item 9E and set up a public hearing. So moved.
9D.
E is in Edward.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
And this one's not labeled, but it comes after 9E on the agenda. It's between E and F, so we'll call it E and a half. Move to receive and set up a public hearing. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Thank you. And one other piece of housekeeping. On the report of Committee for Industrial Community Development, Captain Richards, in his brief presentation, had also mentioned a request to propose some ordinance changes with respect to parking fines, and I left that off my motion, so I'd like to add that to my earlier motion. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
No further motions. Thank you, Mr. Acting President.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Ward 2. So where we at? 8.
No, we're talking Walsh for motions.
Councilor Walsh, any motions?
I wouldn't dare, Mr. President. No motions.
Councilman Stoulis, any motions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, under suspension of the rules, to receive item I and J and set up a public hearing.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed? It's a vote.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, also I'd like to make a motion, it's a little unusual here, to have Public Works speak with the gas company that's doing work on Tremont Street right now. And my request is to have the gas company hot top from Wallace Street to the Salem line. On the motion, Mr. Chairman, let me kind of explain what's going on. They put new gas lines in on the whole street, and one side of the street where they're putting the gas lines, they tear that street up about 3 feet, and they're doing it in section, and it's going to take a couple of months, however long it's going to take. And when they finish, they put a temporary fill in there, and then 3 or 4 months later, they come back, supposedly, and put the final film on. But this is what bothers me. If you go up and down all the streets that the gas companies have worked on, it looks like our city streets are just not well taken care of, when in reality, you know, the cost is very expensive to hot top a street, and then within a month they're torn up, and you see the sections, and as ward councilors, which all the councilors know, we only get 2 or 3 streets a year to pave. So it's pretty important for us to have our wards looking good. And especially a street like Tremont Street, which is a main street and very heavily traveled, you want that street to be presentable. I mean, we hot-topped it not too long ago, and the street is all chopped up. So I guess what I'm asking is, when the gas company comes back from Wallace Street to the Salem line, instead of just filling that hole, put a skim coat the whole length of the street so it looks like your street it looks fairly new, which it should look like. So I'll leave that up to Public Works to figure out how to do that with the gas company. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
On the motion, Councilor Sinowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, Jim, you're 100% right. And 10 years ago, when they were paving streets in West Peabody, we had streets that were just paved, and they came down and did a swatch, 2 feet wide, the whole street, and it's never actually done properly. So as a council, we worked in, I don't know what the plan is in your ward, Jim, this year for paving. I don't know if they plan on paving, but any street that is paved in Ward 6, we reach out to the DPW, which contacts National Grid and does any road work on those streets before, and it's worked out really well. So they come in, they tear, the street's going to be torn up anyway. So you might want to, I don't know if Tremont Street's going to be paved this year, maybe it's not, but any street that's going to be paved in the future, just have DPW contact National Grid and do all your repairs now. Because they actually blocked National Grid from doing an install after they repaved Bow Street. We had them, we just repaved it beautifully, and some guy wanted to connect, and we told the guy before, you have to do all your work, and so we had to wait 2 years. So, but just a comment, so, yeah.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilman Tsoulis, all set. Councilor Charis?
Thank you, Dean of Council. I have a couple. Just a point of information, last month, myself, Councilor McGinn, and the Sharon Cameron of the Board of Health and the members of the Board of Health had a visit at Roosevelt and went over some of the improvements they have made in the last few months, which was covers, filters, and operation procedures and things of that nature. They are, again, looking at other covers to be installed on some of their tanks and some more improvements. I want to thank Sharon Cameron for spending the time and with her board members going through and taking this matter very seriously. I think the conditions are being improved, and I just want the residents of the Emerson Park that normally has to deal with the odor to understand that the city, working with Roosevelt, is making the improvements. Second, I'd like to ask to have a parking restriction on the east going west side of Summit from Centennial Park to Forest Street, especially now when they building those 2 houses, and on the bend there's going to be 2 more houses. So I would ask if that can go to municipal safety, and ask for the input into the police station about asking for a ban on east going west side of Summit from Centennial to Forest. So move.
On the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote.
And I did have one more. Well, I can't even read my own handwriting, so if I can figure it out in the next 2 minutes, if you allow, come back to me. Thank you.
Okay.
You want to move on?
Councilor Sinowitz.
Thank you, Mr. President. No motions, just a couple of comments. First, I want to thank the DPW. There was some things that were way behind on, and they got on them the last week and a half, so I want to thank them for doing those, and the residents of those streets are very happy, so I want to thank the DPW. Birch Street is still in limbo right now. We're still waiting for the plans. We're going back and forth with the engineers. I got to double check, because if it's on again, we might have a planning board meeting. Okay, after that, I haven't heard anything or gotten that it's a go for this month from the planning board. And I'm planning the last July 4th party. It's going very well, and I'm extremely happy. And we're going to have a good time. So come on out and have some fun.
Councilor Jarrett.
Thank you. I did figure out what I was writing down, and it went right along with the municipal advocate here for safety. If we can ask the, again, municipal safety for their input with the police about the cars who are now scooting down the left-hand side where it's going to be a left turn on a light. We have it here on Lowell Street, 2 places, and throughout the city. What's finding is the cars are scooting down where it's still 1 lane on the left-hand side. It's becoming very, very dangerous. In a lot of cases, the cars are still lined up in traffic, and a person may be walking across the street and they're not being seen by the car that's coming down the left. We're going to have some major issues one of these days, and I just, if there's lines to be painted on the sides of something like that, I know people trying to get to the intersection sooner, but someone's going to get seriously hurt, and we're having more and more of these streets opened up to a left-hand turn in the lane. So if we can ask the municipal safety to take that on. So move.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. That's it, no motions for me. Let's see. 8A, didn't we, 8A?
Mr. President, 8A, I'm going to move that we take no action on 8A and that we add that to the agenda of the next council meeting. And on the motion, so moved, and on the motion, this relates to a billboard in Ward 5, and without the president here to address that, I'd prefer to postpone action on that. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. 8C.
Receive.
Refer that to, I want to go there.
Do you want to put it in subcommittee? I mean, the ward council's not here, so you want to refer it to legal affairs?
We'll move that to receive and move to legal affairs, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Mr. Chairman, did you receive 8B? Where did it go?
It got referred to the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right, great.
Councilman McGinn, you went through a lot of these. You want to go? L?
I think the only one that remains that I can see is M, as in Michael, and I believe that is belongs to Councilman Turco.
Mr. President, move to receive item 8M in reference to item 4B, the withdrawn application at 91 Linfield Street.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. And we did L.
L, we have them all.
9A, utility contractor's license.
Motion to approve for utility contractor's license for LaMontagne Brothers, Inc., 37 Federal Hill Road, Oxford, NCCL Enterprises, LLC, 27 Water Street, Wakefield. All papers being in order, so moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. 9B, taxi cabs, Councilor Gould.
Motion to approve all papers being in order. Tri-City Services, 55 Rear Walnut Street, license number 6, so moved. Transfer of license, excuse me.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
9C, junk dealer's license renewal. Approve all papers being in order. Charlene Appliance Center, 15 Spring Street. So moved.
9D.
Use of the Wigan Auditorium by Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, April 3rd and 4th of 2018. Approve all papers being in order. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. 9F.
Set up a public hearing for the Azorian Brothers of the Holy Ghost Entertainment License. So moved.
That's
Just-
That was E, or an F.
I'm sorry.
This is on F, Counsel Gould.
Sorry. Approve all taxi driver's license for Robert Turner, 56 River Street, Beverly, license 4. Approve all papers being in order. So moved.
On the motion, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote.
Motion
Motion to adjourn.